Hello again. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Leveraging Your ICS Community with Collective Defense and Requests for Assistance. Again, my name is Sam Wilson, Product Marketing Manager here at Dragos. A couple of housekeeping items. The session is being recorded and the recording will be sent out after the webinar. Feel free to share this with your colleagues if you think that they would find it valuable. We have muted your lines, but we still want you to interact with us. So please use the Q&A chat to submit any questions you have, and we'll get to them at the end. And any that we don't get to respond to, we'll do our best to follow up with you afterwards. Now I'd like to present my co-presenter, the illustrious Umair Masood, Director of Product Management here at Dragos. So let's go over the agenda quickly. And then we'll do some setup slides just to give you some background and context on Neighborhood Keeper, give you an idea where it fits into the overall portfolio for us and the solution mix. And then we have some use case demos that we've pre-recorded so that we can quickly kind of move through those together in a back-to-back sequence. So those demos in order would be the alert prioritization, what we call trusted insight response, and then lastly, a new feature that we've added to Neighborhood Keeper called request for assistance. After that, we'll do our Q&A. All right, so just a little bit about where Neighborhood Keeper fits into things for us here at Dragos. So we have a very kind of platform-centric view when we talk to customers in different situations. So we start with platform, but the important thing is, and this is what sort of makes our solution different, is there's a lot of things that surround the platform and that are connected to it. But the platform is kind of the essence of the expertise and the frontline experience that we have. All that knowledge that we have is codified into what customers use a platform for. And those things that kind of complement and feed into the platform include the threat intelligence. We have a lot of threat analysts, and you've heard a lot of presentations maybe from us recently on different threat groups that we're tracking. But it's that insight, it's the knowledge that we use through that threat intelligence that we feed into things like our worldview product, the platform itself, how we can detect vulnerabilities and threat behaviors. And then our services teams also leverage the platform for different engagements, and they benefit from some of the threat intel. But the last piece, though, that really kind of is the glue that holds all this together, and this is really the essence behind Neighborhood Keeper and the driving motion behind it, is that we want to make sure that we're giving resources back to the community and that we can have a kind of collective defense concept here. So we'll explain what that means as we go through the demos and in the next few slides, but keep this big picture in mind: platform, intel, services, and then community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Umair, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Umair Masood. As Sam mentioned, I'm Director of Product here at Dragos, responsible for Neighborhood Keeper. I have been with Dragos for about 10 months or so. Prior to that, I spent 13 years at Rockwell Automation, working in a similar capacity within the kind of security OT-focused capabilities space. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, obviously Neighborhood Keeper. We're excited about where the program has gone and what we've been able to build within Keeper. Excited to show you guys some of the use cases and how we are seeing customers leverage this capability of collective defense for the community. So I just wanted to kind of level set, start off by really kind of talking about what the original vision we kind of set out when we started the Neighborhood Keeper program. And what were some of the challenges, the specific set of challenges within the ICS and OT community that we were looking to solve kind of with this program. The first challenge identified was really that when we started, there was kind of this limited visibility into ICS and OT environments, and especially as it pertains to the infrastructure community. there was kind of this recognition around, yes, there's some good programs on the enterprise IT side of the house, as it pertains to kind of this, visibility and, understanding of what may be going on within the IT spaces of the infrastructure community. CRISP, for example, was a program and is a program. It's a very good program. But there really wasn't a whole lot of understanding of, hey, what was exactly going on the OT side. Secondly, there was this challenge of defending in isolation. There's, obviously a lot of skilled teams out there, a lot of, teams that are doing some great work, defending their own environments. But ultimately, the challenge is that these teams are having to go toe to toe with these state and national actors, kind of on their own. And really kind of, we wanted to create a capability that looked to kind of address that challenge. And then finally, when those teams kind of did, their courageous and awesome work, their ability to share the insights, share the intelligence out, that was still a very latent process. Just with all of the sensitivities and classifications and protected data due to regulations, et cetera, that was involved, it was always and has been kind of this really slow process to be able to share, relevant information out on a very timely basis, so that when some of these adversaries are conducting their campaigns, that information is readily available and is specific. And so, that is what, those were kind of the main three challenges that the Keeper program, Neighborhood Keeper program, is looking to solve. And we kind of wanted to start to address this model of how do we accomplish this kind of with all of these sensitivities in mind. And so, Sam, if you go to the next slide, I can start to talk about what were some of the things that we have been doing to address these challenges. I mentioned kind of insights and intelligence. One of the key pieces around that is, how do we start to generate these insights, and how do we generate them in a way that don't carry those sensitivities and classifications necessarily? And really the answer to that is Neighborhood Keeper, and to be able for Keeper to operate, we really needed a platform that added that visibility, and that is the Dragos Platform. So that's really where the Dragos Platform kind of comes into the picture. So first and foremost, Neighborhood Keeper is a free opt-in program for any Dragos Platform customer. We do get asked typically, hey, if I'm not a Dragos customer, can I take advantage of this program? And really, unfortunately, no, you can't, because it really comes down to kind of this technical limitation. Think of the Dragos Platform as the sensor that is providing that visibility into the OT environment. It's providing the understanding of what exactly is going on in the environment, what type of devices exist. Is there a GE device? Is there a Siemens device? Is there an Emerson device out there? How are these devices talking to each other? And even beyond that, Dragos Platform allows us to understand, what is the attack surface of this environment? What are the vulnerabilities that exist across, OT devices in this environment? And then more so, really the core aspect of the Dragos Platform is to help uncover, what type of adversary behavior may be going on within these environments. There's threat detections that are built within the platform, detections built by our Dragos Threat Intelligence team that kind of are focused on detecting those adversary behaviors. And then even beyond that, there's playbooks that are offered that allow customers, Dragos Platform customers, to be able to respond to certain types of threats as well. And so, really kind of that answer to the question around how do we start generating those insights for the community, it's the Dragos Platform. And then how do we share those insights that are collected without those sensitivities? That's where Neighborhood Keeper really starts to come in. to the picture. So Sam, if you could hit the next slide for me, please. So from a deployment perspective, I just want to quickly cover this so you guys kind of have an understanding of kind of what the architecture looks like as this capability would be deployed within any OT environment. So within the Dragos platform, we have these Dragos sensors. These are, kind of these passive network appliances that you deploy down within your industrial environment, so they can start to see the east and west traffic, start to understand what devices exist within this environment. As I mentioned before, what is talking to what, understand the attack surface. And really, what these sensors are doing they are analyzing and picking up the network traffic data, converting that traffic into this metadata, and then sending it up into the Dragos platform, the site store, where those insights they start to get generated. And then from there, when a customer opts in to Neighborhood Keeper, that's when those insights are sent up to a US hosted AWS server, where the Neighborhood Keeper capability in the platform is built and stored. So next slide for me, please, Sam. So, I kind of hopefully gave you guys at least a quick overview of kind of how Neighborhood Keeper works. Now I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into this aspect of, how do we think about those insights, and then removing some of those sensitivities that we discussed have been a part of the challenge of not allowing us to kind of share this information, at a much faster pace. So, really one of the main ingredients in really allowing for Keeper to kind of overcome those challenges is, the aspect of how do we deal with identity, right? How does identity and Keeper really start to work? And so really the first piece is the way we do that is we just never ask for the identity to begin with. Instead of the Dragos platform sharing that identity with the insight, we have the platform create a pseudo identity, a pseudonym, and that pseudo identity can be re-rolled by the Dragos platform customer at any time. And then, to add some context back into the insights that are being generated with that pseudo identity, we attach, and this again is user configurable, are the demographics. So the user selects, hey, once I opt in, I am a part of this industry, I am a part of this region, and my organization is of this size. Those are all kind of contextual demographics that are then attached to the insights that are being generated for Neighborhood Keeper. So the next piece that I want to kind of touch on is really where, back thinking about some of those challenges around latency, some of those traditional programs that we've seen that are currently operating, they're great programs, but they usually take the traditional approach of really kind of collecting a bunch of data, collecting identity, and then bringing it all back to one place. And as I mentioned, that's where kind of some of that latency starts to get added, because then you have this aspect of maybe a couple of analysts that are having to kind of sift through the data and then share that out with the community. So the kind of the novel piece of Neighborhood Keeper really is that we wanted to kind of flip that model, if you will, on its head, and instead of kind of aggregating all of this data in one place, we wanted to approach the problem kind of in this different way of allowing for the community to start to federate out their questions, their queries, that the questions that they have of the insights. So instead of us collecting like all these user logs and putting them into the portal, the way the Neighborhood Keeper portal really works is it allows for the community to come in and ask questions, and the responses that are generated at each of those Dragos platform environments, those are compiled and those come back. The responses, the insights, the prevalence data, and those come back with, as I mentioned prior, the context of the demographics, the context of, hey, if I have a question with regards to, am I seeing a new threat? Am I seeing, something that maybe I'm interested in? Who else is seeing this? And hey, can you tell me if you're seeing this within a certain region? Can you tell me, if I'm able to see the existence of certain adversary behavior within the electric sector versus the water wastewater sector? And so, that's really kind of the main kind of capability of Neighborhood Keeper is, instead of trying to aggregate identity, we really don't want to know the identity, and really we don't even want the data. We don't want the data. We really just want the insights that are collected, what we want to be able to provide to the community is the ability to ask those questions. That's kind of the main piece around Keeper. The next piece is that, once we start to collect, the insights, and once we start to, really kind of create this mechanism through which we can allow for this newly new capability be introduced into the community. There's a lot of folks that want to be able to start to be a part of that process. And a big part of, the defense of the industrial community is the public sector, right? Is those government entities like CISA, also non-government entities like ICS, and really their intent is to be able to start to gain that kind of visibility into these environments, what exactly is going on. But there's also a benefit of having these folks and these trusted advisors, as we call them, be a part of the community, because they themselves have further insight. They have further intelligence that they're collecting, and in some cases, we want those entities to be able to share that intelligence in very specific ways with the community as well. So really, there's kind of this two-way benefit, this public-private partnership that we can really start to foster with the Neighborhood Keeper capability. So kind of with that intro, next I want to do is flip over to the demo portion of the webinar so that you guys can start to get a much closer look at how Neighborhood Keeper actually works. As I mentioned earlier, there's these kind of, as Sam mentioned earlier, there's 3 areas that we really want to showcase today. So let's hop into the demo. We have a pre-recording of the demo. So Sam, if you can go ahead and start the recording, that'd be great. Okay, so when we think about enabling threat intelligence at machine speed for ICS environments, one of the first use cases that our customers get most excited about is really the typical SOC analyst problem. A SOC analyst wants to know, how do I prioritize which alert I need to triage? Which one do I need to pay attention to first? So let me just talk about how Neighborhood Keeper can kind of assist with this challenge. But before we go into Keeper, I kind of want to show you the platform side of things, because I think this makes the demo a bit more tangible. In our Maryland headquarters, we have a bunch of different industrial ranges with industrial equipment deployed. I am logged into one of these systems, and this is a depiction of the notification screen of that system. And it's showing up all the notifications, really, as an example of a SOC analyst, I'm kind of tasked with being able to tend to, I'm an analyst. I'm responsible for both maybe OT and IT, because maybe I'm sitting in a hybrid SOC and there's tons of things going on, and I'm trying to figure out which one of these things do I care about, which one do I need to go triage first. And so in this simulated demo, I just have a couple of these detections. And maybe there's a few here, SMB lateral movement techniques, and kind of these port sweeps, ICS ports that I'm wondering about, that I want to say, like, okay, well, which one should I go and try to triage first? So with those two in mind, let me flip over to Neighborhood Keeper, and just give you kind of a high level understanding of, how I would continue that workflow into Keeper. So as we get into Keeper, what's really maintained here is high level information about what detections are taking place across the community, across the Neighborhood Keeper participant pool. How many people are seeing the different types of detections, what is occurring, and one of the first things that I can do is I can come in here and change, for example, the time slices that I'm receiving this information for. The other piece that I have here is I can, in addition to time slices, I can, change my view and change the data that's being presented to me by demographic information. So maybe I just want to understand what are certain, the most common analytics that are firing in certain industries. I can come in and filter down by that. Maybe I just want to understand it by region even. I have the ability to do that as well. At the bottom here, there are, a few kind of pre-baked, preloaded queries that we think are probably most often used. Some of these are, for example, the most common threat analytic. And it shows you just an example of what are the most common threat analytics across the Neighborhood Keeper pool. And same thing, there's additional information here on least common threat analytics, et cetera. But, kind of with that kind of capability as an analyst in mind, what I want to do next is try to then understand what's being seen around the community, and in particular to the two alerts that we discussed in the platform, how many people may be seeing that alert. So maybe I can just, I can simply come up here into the search bar at the top and put in my first detection. So the first detection here was the lateral movement signatures, and what you see here is, like, if you're someone familiar with ICS or OT environments, you may probably understand that SMB is pretty widely used in OT environments. Typically, you've got a lot of folks using file shares, Windows file shares. They leverage SMB as a protocol for that. And the data kind of corroborates that here. What you're seeing is a ton of participants, a ton of occurrences. Okay, so as that SOC analyst, I probably should go look at kind of that other one. So let's go look at the other one here. Okay, so that's interesting. It looks like there's really only one occurrence of that. Maybe if I saw a couple more, I could say, and maybe even look at the timeline and say, like, hey, did this occur during the same time as me? Is this, maybe I could even apply the region filter in here and say, hey, did this occur in or around the same region as me? That may give me some additional insight into why I may want to prioritize triaging this alert, because maybe there's a specific threat group that has a campaign going on and they're doing some reconnaissance by utilizing this. And if it's only a couple of people that are seeing this, hey, I should pay attention to this alert. So that, gives you just a quick understanding of how Neighborhood Keeper could help, prioritize the SOC analyst's time. But what I want to do now is transition by building on to this concept of priorities, because, priorities, obviously they can be informed based off of what we're seeing everybody else kind of detect within their environments, but they can also be informed based on intelligence we receive from the outside. For example, a trusted advisor organization, a government entity that actually owns the responsibility at a community level to defend these infrastructures, for example, CISA, EISAC, even Dragos, they may have come across a piece of intelligence that they may want to make sure makes it out to the community. Intelligence that could be pertinent to defending your ICS environment. So for this reason, we put together this capability in Neighborhood Keeper called Trusted Insight Response. The capability really allows for trusted advisors such as CISA, Department of Energy, those that are our trusted advisors in the system, to be able to send out messages to neighborhood keeper participants, keeping them informed of any intelligence that they may need to be aware of. And so trusted advisors, they have the ability to direct these messages in a few different ways. One of those ways is by sending out a broadcast message. This would basically be kind of a message that goes out to all neighborhood keeper participants. Another way is to specify a detection or telemetry that they want to use as a filter for that message. And so when they use the telemetry type, that message will only go to neighborhood keeper participants that have that specific detection firing in their environment. There's this here example that's in kind of the table here is an example of a telemetry type. And so, you've got a kind of a quick blurb of, hey, this is the intelligence that we're seeing. Maybe there is some threat group that is leveraging a specific detection, and we want to make sure that folks that have seen that detection fire in their platform, maybe in succession, they need to be vigilant and probably should do some investigation around that. The same can be done for a specific vulnerability. Maybe there is some new supply chain level threat that a government entity wants to make the community aware of, and they can come in here and maybe select asset. Hey, there's a specific vulnerability or a specific asset that's being targeted by a vendor. And so now when you deal with these kind of supply chain level risks, you've got the ability to leverage the Dragos platform, which is already doing your inventory, and kind of reduce the time it takes, to reduce the level of effort it takes for you to identify what your exposure to that risk may be. So, that overall is the trusted insight response capability. But the last thing I want to showcase here is, what if you find yourself in a place where you need a little more assistance than just understanding what everybody else is seeing, or just receiving some intelligence from the community? What if you need a little bit more kind of direct aid and assistance? And because really when you think about it, a lot of the utility or infrastructure community, yes, there are some big players and they're doing some really good work, but there are also some smaller players that have a lack of resources. And so for that reason, one of the things that we built into Neighborhood Keeper that we're most excited about is the request for assistance feature. And what really the intent is to allow for the community to have a tool to be able to help themselves, really. It's kind of this concept of cyber mutual assistance. How do we respond to each other? When through discussions that we've had with the community, Dragos, we understand that there are actually a lot of agreements in the community that exist, because there is a lot of desire in the community to work together. Just really the gap has been the kind of the technical capability or the technical reality to make that happen. Well, now with a feature, like request for assistance, that's what our intent is to address that challenge. So let me, hey, Sam, if you're over there, can you go ahead and put in a request for assistance so that I can kind of show the audience here what it would look like to receive one, to respond to one, and then, I'll actually, in the meantime, I'll go through and just create a new one myself as well. So, imagine that you are a small municipality. You have little resources, but you are dealing with kind of that same problem of all the alerts, all the notifications that are firing. Maybe you come to a place where you're like, okay, I think I need some help. I think I need to reach out to someone and get some assistance. So, you can actually come into Neighborhood Keeper, into the RFA page, and you can start a request. You've got the ability to define the type of request that you have. Maybe it's just informational. You're looking for some simple advice, or it's a kind of detection validation. You just want to see if the community can help you with validating a detection, or you actually have an active incident. And it is something that, you think you need some real serious help with. Well, when you open up the create new request form, you've got the ability to go ahead and put in your request. You can then choose to include your demographics as well if you choose to, and then you get to come down here and you can select the reach, or really define just who can see your request. You've got the ability to limit it down to your specific industries. In addition to that, you can even define to allow for your request to go out to private industry only, or include trusted advisors from the government. So CISA, DOE, for example, as well. And once you submit that, that request goes out to the community, and it is, kind of made, it's essentially gone out to everybody that you wanted to be able to see it. The best part of all of this is you do not have to disclose your identity as a part of that process. You get to control when you want to disclose that, your identity. The only thing you're sharing is, what you need help with, and your demographics. So looks like Sam went ahead and put in a request here. Looks like he's had this log4j detection fire, and he's requesting for some assistance. I've got some context here of like, okay, looks like he's in oil and gas. It's a large organization. As a responder, I can come in here and start to kind of, as Dragos, maybe I want to let the requester know, hey, this is something that we can help with. We've got incident response teams. We can send looks like we've got 1 or 2 available. Please reach out to us. We can put in our email. Maybe I choose to put in my telephone as well. I can give a quick availability period to them, and I can say like, hey, I'm available Wednesday from around 4 to about 5 p.m. 3 to 5 p.m. and I can go ahead and submit that. And what that will allow for is for the requester to be able to then choose, exactly which specific organization they want to actually get help from. They could essentially receive multiple responses. They will see the organization name from the responders, and then they have the kind of power to say, looks like, I think this is the entity that can help me, probably in the most seamless way. And they can choose to then take their coordination, their communication with that entity offline. So there's no data being exchanged here. There is, the requester has no way to share their identity on here. They now have the ownership of when they want to reach out, who they want to reach out to, and kind of select who they really help, and who they get help from. So, what some of the things that we've seen is like really how much effort and work that has really already been put into kind of helping the broader community. And we think that this tool, Request for Assistance, is something that really starts to, kind of allow for this type of assistance to really become scalable. And it's really kind of the idea that anybody that needs to request for help can get assistance. And we think it kind of starts to, democratize incident response, and even analysis across the community. And it just really enables everyone to just take care of each other. And do that at speed, at scale, and just massively reducing overall complexity to provide that assistance to each other. All right, with that, Sam, I'll hand it back over to you to lead us into Q&A.
Sounds good. Thanks, Umair. So we did ask that people submit questions through the Q&A chat window. I think you've addressed most of those already, Umair, directly back to the person that asked. looks like there's a couple though that might be worth addressing in real time. Do you want to speak to any of those verbally before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. So I see, there's a question on, does the platform integrate with essentially a SIM to support efficient SOC with single pane of glass? So yeah, there are multiple integrations that we support from a SIM perspective, either native through some native capacity or through syslog integration as well. I see another question regarding trusted advisors only sharing with Neighborhood Keeper subscribers. So currently, any of the trusted insight response messages that are sent out to by trusted advisors, those are those are sent to Neighborhood Keeper participants. So if you are a Dragos Platform customer and you have opted in to Neighborhood Keeper, you would receive that message either in the Neighborhood Keeper portal, as we showed, or you would also be able to view that same message, the Trust Insight Response message, within the Dragos platform as well. And so, yeah, there's a question here on properly trained IT staff are almost slow to notice issues, clarifications, looking around the question. So how?
Yeah, I think there might be a point of clarification needed on that question. So the person that asked was kind of around the level of detail that people that respond to the questions are willing to go. So the questions that are submitted are not submitted to Dragos, but other Neighborhood Keeper participants. And responses are optional. So it's a goodwill scenario. So if there's a question that's asked that's really not appropriate or at a level of detail that wouldn't be within the normal context of that conversation, anyone that receives the question isn't obligated to respond to it. But we also would ask that people that do participate recognize that there are others in the community that might have less knowledge, less situational context and awareness than themselves. And this kind of collective defense concept is strengthened as we give back to others and as you're able to find time to help those that are in the same industries or the same region. They'll learn something, and maybe in the future, you'll ask a question of them that you can benefit from as well. Okay, another couple just popped in quickly. Do you want to take those, Umair?
Let me see. I actually don't see any additional questions.
Okay, I guess the one I was looking at was the converged IT/OT SOC. Maybe when you spoke to the SIM integration, I kind of covered that one. Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, I think that covers all the questions that were submitted. We really appreciate everyone's time today. So thank you for joining us. If you have other questions that come up afterwards, or we didn't get to something that you tried to submit, we will try to follow up with any that trickle in. Don't forget that if you would like a more specific demonstration or conversation, or you want to just read more about Neighborhood Keeper or the platform in general, you can either go to dragos.com or contact us at sales@dragos.com, and we'll be happy to follow up with you.
Hey, Sam, Sam, there's one question before we end. I did answer it. I just wanted to call attention to it. It is, I don't have the app yet. I have a demo next week. It says, I understand the upside of Neighborhood Keeper by putting of Keeper. And then it says, basically it's asking about what is, is there some sensitivity with regards to maybe somebody has the ability to kind of look at vulnerability information from their specific site being uploaded along with any others, and how could this become a target for those looking at that data? So, my answer essentially here that I just want to reiterate live was, as I mentioned earlier on in the webinar, an integral part of Neighborhood Keeper is that we do not collect, any identity related information. And so, what that essentially means is that we obviously never collect organization name. And then additionally, for assets, vulnerabilities, for detections, we do not collect any information that could be identifiable. So that includes things like IP addresses, MAC addresses, serial numbers, domains. And in particular, when it comes to assets and vulnerabilities, we aren't collecting total counts of vulnerabilities. We're just collecting, it's a binary collection of, oh, hey, when a vulnerability question comes in, does this vulnerability exist within a site or not? So it's not the totals, it's merely the fact that it exists. So these pieces all combined with the pseudo identity, with their really kind of it being technologically irreversible to understand who the identity of any participant in the Neighborhood Keeper portal is, it really mitigates this risk of somebody trying to figure out which specific site may have a vulnerability. So hopefully that kind of clarifies that question and that point for anybody else that may have been wondering.
Yeah, it's good to emphasize. This is a bit of a different concept. There's no other offering that's available that addresses it quite the same way that we do. So at that point is important. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, well, that will conclude today's webinar. Again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thank you.